What's up, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of the On Purpose podcast. Today, I am excited to have a truly remarkable guest joining us, Ketu Thomas, also known as Ketu. He's coming on to share his journey as a former inmate to now being a wellness coach, meditation teacher, and that transformation has been nothing short of extraordinary. In researching him, I saw that he had a quote that I really love, and I want to get more information from him. And it says, "Not all prisons have bars, that many people live behind walls of doubt, regret, and fear." And I think that's so true, right? Not all of us are going to go to prison like he did, but some of us put ourselves in prison with our thoughts and our emotions and our unwillingness to forgive what happened in the past, to find grace for ourselves and to move forward. So I'm excited to share this conversation with you. And I just ask that if you get any value from this episode, if you got value from the last 5 years with us, please do us a favor, like, subscribe, share on your favorite platform. If you really want to join us on patreon.com, where for $2 to $10 a month, you can financially help support the podcast. You get early access to episodes, bonus content goes in there. Like right before I record this episode today, I shared my answer to one of our warm-up questions, and that is what songs on repeat. I put my current song on repeat in there for all the Patreon members to listen to and ask what they are. So it's another way for you to interact with us, to get a little more behind the scenes. And we'd love your support. So patreon.com/the On Purpose podcast, between $2 and $10 a month. You can join us and really help us continue to bring purposeful content to people around the world. So this week, sit back, enjoy, and think about what you hear and think about how we can tie the messages that Ketu Thomas is sharing and apply it to our life. Enjoy this week's conversation, everybody. Ketu, my newest friend, welcome to the On Purpose podcast. How are you today?
I'm doing well, Jerrod. How you doing?
Blessed, man. I'm about to learn from you, my friend. You know how excited that gets you? And I'm like, man, I get to learn something new today from somebody I'm having the pleasure to meet for the first time. Like, how can I have a better start to my day than that?
Well, thank you for having me on today. It's a pleasure to be on.
Yeah, I'm excited to share your story, and I wanted to thank you for what you're doing. You know what I mean? And we're gonna get into the background and the whole story for our community here in a minute, but I just want them to understand that like this is it, you are exactly what we created this kind of show for, and why we look where we pay attention to people that cross our paths. So that one, we
Yeah.
can learn from them, but two, we can help share their story. And I want to just thank you for having the courage to overcome what you've overcome and then say, wait a second, if I can do it and I tell other people about it, maybe they'll do it.
Yeah. Thank you. I mean, that is the mission, is just to kind of help others get out of whatever dark places they may be in, just to reach their highest potential. Like I was in that place before. I've been able to, have these results. And so just want to help other people kind of get that as well.
I love it. I love, yeah, I'm just proud of you. And I just think so many people just won't lean into this place, right? We just won't step into it. And you had a quote that I was researching you. I love researching my guests. That's one of my favorite things. And you had a quote that said, "Not all prisons have bars, walls of
Mm,
doubt, regret, and fear." And I was like, ooh, that is
yeah.
so
It's
true, right?
It's so true. Many people, might not be in a physical prison, but those mental prisons that's holding them back from, living their highest potential. And again, it's those doubts, those fears, and things. So that's the purpose.
Yeah, I love it. All right, but before we get going, right? Before we get going, you're into yoga and fitness and stuff too. I don't like to just jump you into the heavy stuff. We got to warm up, get our minds, our body going. So, K2, are you ready for your warm up, my friend?
I am. Thank you.
All right, let's go. Here we go. Sun rises or sun sets?
Son, both.
Ooh, yeah, yeah. Tell me why.
And this is a one of the key principles of my studies, which is Ayurveda. Ayurveda is a system of healthcare from Eastern India.
Mm.
And, and one of the main aspects of gaining health is to align with the laws of nature. And so early to bed, early to rise makes a person healthy, wealthy, and wise. We've heard all these quotes before. But going to bed at a certain time, being able to, align with the sun, and when the sun goes down, moon comes up. So just like a flower, when the sun comes up, it opens it up. That's what's happening with our energy channels and things inside. Same thing when the sun goes down, that flower closes. So that's what's happening with our energy, our digestive tract, all of these things. And so, like eating at certain times of the day, eating at night could disturb those things because those channels are closed. It's just the basic Ayurvedic principle. That's the kind of the best advice that I can give to anyone, is to align themselves with those laws of nature. And the easiest way to do that is early to bed, early to rise. One of the more challenging parts is diet,
Yeah.
diet for everyone. Yeah, but those are the two things. If we can watch our sleep, get the body enough rest and adequate rest while we're sleeping, and diet, those are kind of the two ways to approach an Ayurvedic lifestyle.
All right. Good. That's a great answer. All right. Song on repeat on your phone right now.
Um, I would say The Weekend. All of it, all of his songs stay on repeat. I like all the albums. Favorite album is Trilogy. It's like three of his albums together. I keep that on repeat a lot.
Love it. Favorite book?
Oh, that's a tough one. I have many. What comes to mind right now is Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda. It was kind of a spark to let me see that other individuals were living in these higher states. We'll get into kind of the other part, but Jesus quote John 14:12, not only will my disciples do the works that I've done, but they'll do greater things because I'm going to the Father. That was something that gave me hope. That also gave me, I kind of felt convicted by those words. And I didn't honestly believe they were, you know, I could do Jesus type things. But then I started reading Autobiography of a Yogi, and it was many enlightened beings, high consciousness beings that have done many different things. And so that was a book that stood out for me.
Yeah, that's good. Dinner, you get to have dinner with one person. They could have passed away or still be with us. Who would you want to have dinner with, and what would you want to learn from them?
Mm. Who comes to mind? JP Morgan. I'm kind of in this business state right now. I saw a quote, like I use astrology a lot for business purpose, for personal purpose, business purpose, things like that. JP Morgan had a quote. He said, millionaires don't use astrology, billionaires do. And it was something because I've been able to use it to progress my own business, um, climb out of the poverty that I grew up in, poverty mindset, um, into the place that I am now. I would love to kind of sit down with him and see how he utilized it since he, mentioned this quote.
Interesting. All right, that's the final warm-up question. What is a memorable
Okay.
quote or saying that you have posted or that you're kind of living by? Something that stuck with you.
Hmm. Growth in higher states of consciousness really has nothing to do with new ideas, new moods, or new attitudes. It has everything to do with the physiology. Most importantly, brain coherence and refinement of the nervous system. And without these changes, then growth in higher states can't happen. That's a quote from Maharshi Mahesh Yogi, where most of my teachings have come from.
Wow, I gotta tell you, that's by far the longest quote I've had in that answer.
And I remember it word from word. It was something that, just due to my path and how I began this thing, it was mostly on the body. Um, I felt I felt I was creating a relationship with God, with the creator, however you want to look at that. And I felt like this is the temple of God and God is within. So if I want to have this intimate relationship, then this is what I needed to work on. And so that's how I started in yoga and Ayurveda and all those other pieces. And then when I did my degree program, once I actually heard that quote, I was like, oh, this makes a lot of sense. This kind of defines the path that I've been going on and why I've been able to have much success in my endeavors. So
Fantastic. You feeling warmed up, my friend?
I am. Those are great questions. I haven't had those before on a
Yeah.
podcast.
Ah, thanks. Yeah, I enjoy them, and I change them up. If I start getting the same answers or I get bored with them, I mix them up. Man, there's no guarantee that's gonna be the same next week.
True.
All right, so Ketu, I want to start that's by going backwards to go forward.
Okay.
So let's talk about growing up on the south side of Chicago and your childhood and what you faced there.
Um, so around third grade, it was probably second to fourth grade, a lot of fights. I was fighting a lot in school. And it got to a point where I was suspended so much that I was going to get expelled if I got into another fight. My mother, I'm the only child. My mom didn't want me growing up, in this environment. So she made a tough decision and she sent me to an all boys military academy that was about an hour outside of Chicago. And that's where I stayed at during the week. Glenwood School for Boys. And I came home on the weekends. And so that kind of gave me a different perspective of life. I remember seeing grass, like an abundance of grass for the first time, interacting with different cultures, different races. And I was most likely angry at that experience at first. Like I didn't quite understand, and I didn't believe my mom would send me there, to be honest. I only child got everything that I always wanted, just grew up in a bad environment. And so 16 is when I left the school. I still was staying out in kind of Glenwood area to go to high school because I had already started high school there, but not in the boys' academy. And then by 18, graduated, started college, really didn't like what I was doing. Computer analyst at DeVry. Um, it sounded good when I signed up, but I didn't enjoy it at all. And started getting into drugs, selling drugs, selling cannabis. And I ended up catching my first case before I was 21. Um, so I did 2 years then. And when I got out, just wanted to kind of get on the straight path, started working, kind of getting my life together. This was about 2008 now, and the crash, the economic crash kind of went down. So I got laid off from my job, got back into selling, and ended up catching a case for an injury to a police officer for resisting arrest. So it was drugs and violence is what got me into the trouble that I was into, violence as a young kid, even, and violence as an adult. Really didn't matter what was going on. It's just that I would have emotions that would happen. I think of emotions as energy in motion. And for whatever reason, the energy channels were clogged, trapped. And so how I expressed emotion was violence. And that got me into the situations that I was in.
Where do you think that was coming from? Looking back now, do you know why you were angry?
I would, if I'm just kind of looking back, I would think that the anger was coming from me having to be displaced from home. But the violence was even before that. Like the fighting was even before that as a second grader, as a third grader. So to be honest, I honestly don't know. We always talk about a product of your environment. That could have been what I was seeing. I grew up in the projects on King Drive,
Yeah.
and I honestly couldn't tell you where the spark of it came.
Yeah. That's interesting. I went through a very angry stage as a youngster as well. And
Hmm.
thankfully I outgrew it. But yeah, I look back, I'm like, man, I'm not sure exactly where I could pinpoint why that anger came up. And Thankfully, it resolved, right? Like we find our way out of it.
Yes,
Yeah. So talk to, so you go to prison for a third time.
correct. At that point, it was like, I don't want to continue to live this lifestyle anymore. I feel like I have more potential inside. How do I tap into this potential? Where do I start? Where do I go from here? And so that last time was 2010, September-ish. And I was saying to myself, like, I didn't grow up with religion. My mom like didn't go to church. I didn't have to go to church when I was a kid. So I really didn't have a relationship with God or religion or any of those things. But I felt like religion was the first place to start. And so when I was in prison that last time, it was for a year, I decided to just kind of dive into the Bible, into the scriptures. Went to Bible studies and, I was there. And the verse that I mentioned was John 14:12 that stood out to me the most. And again, Jesus, this was in the red letters, and he's saying, very, very truly, I tell you, not only will my disciples do the works that I've done, but they'll do greater things. Now, again, I'm sitting in a prison cell for a
Yeah.
third time. So I can't honestly say that I believe that to be the truth, but I had the faith, that faith that was talked about in the scriptures as well, that only needed to be the size of a mustard seed. That was probably about the size that I had at that time. And I just remember having like a sincere prayer. And I'm saying, like, if you are who you are, then just guide me. And there's no place I won't follow. And so that began my transformation from an inmate to the place that I am today. I really didn't know where those things would lead, but again, I said that I would follow wherever that led. And it led me to like the Eastern Indian traditions of yoga, meditation, and Ayurveda were like the main three aspects. So,
Hey, let's go back a second. You said something I find really interesting. I think our community could really benefit from.
okay.
Even in the lowest place, right? I was assume prison the third time's like the low. You're like, man, I'm here again. You said that
Yes.
you realized you had more potential. So even though you're in an environment that doesn't foster belief in yourself or exceeding, what was it inside of you that made you realize, wait a sec, I can be better than this?
I mean, honestly, it was just a feeling. It was, I felt convicted when I heard the verse, and the conviction created a feeling that was like here in my chest area, in my heart, that man, like, and I can look back at results from like school, straight A, I mean, like honor roll student, straight A's. It was just the violence aspect that was holding me back from certain areas. And so, like, if I'm just looking at a societal aspect, because I didn't think that I would be doing what I'm doing now, I'm like, I just want to stop coming to prison. I can find a job. Like I've been to DeVry. Like I could do this if I really wanted to. I just didn't feel like I fit in with society's norms. And so I was maybe acting out in certain ways that led me to where I was. But I felt this conviction inside that was so overwhelming, and this hope that, dang, like he's saying that I could do this. I think I got the potential. He's saying that I can. So let me at least put the effort in. And wherever it leads, it leads. I don't think it's going to lead back to prison if I give it my all. So that's how it just kind of started for me.
So then it takes you go to India, right?
I didn't go to India until 2020. So that was
Okay.
2010 when this was happening. But
Okay.
first thing that I saw was like what I was feeling when I got out. I was going to church maybe for like 6 months. I kind of started the church aspect, but I felt like I wasn't growing. Um, I felt like if you're taking the scripture part, is saying, all right, it's time to move off the spiritual milk and gain some meat or some substance. And again, what I was feeling was God is within, like this is the temple. And so the difference from, for me, what religion is and what spirituality is, religion for me was seeking God outside of myself, and the spirituality was seeking God within. And I was trying to find ways to purify this temple, this body, so that I could grow. And that's when I discovered yoga. I don't even know how that kind of process went. I remember going to Barnes and Nobles maybe, and I got a book. The book was from a guy named Rodney Yee. It was 8 weeks of movement or moving forward, something like that, 8 weeks movement. And it was like an at-home thing that I could do to start. And I went through those 8 weeks and I felt great. And then I felt like, okay, I want to learn more. So I wanted to get in like a group environment. And I went to Lifetime Fitness and they had these group yoga classes. I was going with a friend of mine's and I felt like even better. And so that's kind of how things started. But I still felt like I have this desire for authenticity. And I still felt like things were a little bit surface level. I remember, I'm not sure how, maybe an email, maybe an ad or something, but I found Deepak Chopra and Oprah Winfrey. Really, Oprah is
Yeah.
because I didn't even know who Deepak was at that time. This again was like 2012. Um, but Oprah was doing these meditations with Deepak. And I wanted to go from yoga to like meditation, like still keep the yoga, but now add in the meditation aspect. And they were like these 21-day meditations. One of them was called Perfect Health. And I was like, this feels right. And Deepak was saying, like, oh, if you want to experience perfect health, then come to the Chopra Center. I I didn't have the money and things to do that then. It was for an Ayurvedic cleanse. About 3 years later, I ended up going to that retreat and going through that cleanse. That was my introduction to Ayurveda. So over that time, I was doing some different meditations. I was doing some different yoga, classes and things like that. And then when I found Ayurveda, that's when like a spark hit and life really transformed.
So when you first get out of prison, did you go back home with like your mom and stuff, or did you move?
Did say that again?
When you first got
Oh,
out of
so
prison, did you go back to the same neighborhood you had gotten in trouble from?
no. So where I was selling drugs was about an hour and a half outside of Chicago.
Okay.
And so that's the place that I caught my 3 cases at. I decided I'm not going to go back there. I went back home to Chicago and I was living with my mom, probably on house arrest for that first year, and then started living with a friend, but still in Chicago. I
Okay.
didn't leave Chicago until 2015. That's when I met my now wife, and we were both in kind of the same, journey. We were both looking for like health and transformation. And I told her about this retreat with Deepak and Ayurveda, and that's when we went and explored that together in 2015.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I was just curious. I was like, man, if you went back to the same neighborhood you were getting in trouble in, that's like a huge pull, right? Like to stay separate from that. So you actually made a conscious choice to separate yourself from that past situation.
Yep, because the first 2 times I did go back to that place. Even when I'm saying I'm not about to do the same things,
Yeah.
when circumstances came, like, because I was good for 2 years when I got out the first time. I was working, life was good, normal. And then it was like 2008, the recession. And I'm like, okay, the money thing kind of came back to mind. And that's when I got back into the routine of what I was used to doing. So I decided definitely that I didn't want to go back to that area. Um, that could have been the cause of me not being here right now.
Yeah. And I think that's such a great lesson for our community members, right? Is if we want different results in our life, we want changes. If we keep going back to the same habits or the same group of, maybe it's the same group of friends that that keep us in that same circle, you're kind of fighting against the tide.
Oh yeah. Some things you need to let go of, or I don't look at it as I'm not like a quitter, but it's some things you need to quit. Like I needed to quit doing those same things that I was living, the drugs, the violence, the lifestyle, the environment, and just make a change and do something different. And so that gave me just kind of some leeway to start that transformation. And then things kind of took foot from there. So
Talk to me about this, K2. How did you, sometimes when we're doing something new, we're trying to create ourselves.
Hmm.
fear, doubt, uncertainty creep in, maybe that temptation to go back to what we had been doing because we were somewhat successful at it, or we wouldn't have done it over and over. How did you handle that? How did you say, no, wait a second, I'm on the right path here, even if it's a different path? If I've never been here before, I trust that it's right.
I was still kind of in both worlds, if I'm being
Mm,
honest.
sure.
Uh, I was living the new lifestyle, doing the transformation, and that was kind of the reason. So the other part of it is the reason why I came to Colorado. Um, I was growing cannabis. I went to a school to grow, and so I'm saying like if I'm gonna do what I want to do, I'm going to at least do it legally so I don't have to go back to prison for it. And so I was still, mentally, it's the mind was the hard part to change, to transform. And the mind still wanted to go back to those old ways, even though the new, aspects are happening. So I came to Colorado. I bought a house. My father helped me buy the house here, and he supports me on everything that I do, right or wrong. I'm grateful for him. But he bought us like he signed for the house. I didn't have the credit or anything like that. And I started growing like cannabis here in Colorado and selling legally, had a legal license. And so I was living in both of those worlds where my days were now yoga, meditation, and Ayurveda lifestyle. And then my job was growing cannabis. So I was like living both worlds. And then it got to a point where maybe 3 years. So that was 2016. 2 years went by where I was really seeing some results, like with the Ayurveda, with the cleansing of the body and the cleansing of the mind. And it just got to a point where I didn't want to grow anymore. Like it wasn't attractive. And that's when I let that go and decided to enroll in school and do my bachelor's degree in Ayurveda because I had so much success with that. And about a year later, I felt like I was ready to be of service to other people and started exploring how to create a wellness spa.
Very cool. Talk to me about your journey through Ayurveda and what was it that stuck with you? What was, because there's, I don't want to say trends, but there's a lot of like gratitude stuff out now. There's a lot of meditation and manifestation, and we can create all this. But like you said earlier, a lot of people don't go beyond the surface of that, right? They're not deep in it. So what was it specifically about this methodology and this process that you really bought into and that you saw the results from?
The biggest piece was by far panchakarma. Panchakarma is a detoxification process of Ayurveda. And that's what they were offering at the Chopra Center. I went there for 10 days and life was completely different. I remember about a month later, my wife mentioned to me, she's like, "You're not the same angry person anymore." I had to take an analysis of that. Like, what changed? Nothing really changed in this past like month, 30 days,
Yeah.
besides me going through this cleanse. And so, what they're doing, they're using herbalized oils, and these oils penetrate the skin and the tissues and bond to toxins. And they're using specific massage techniques to bring those toxins to the digestive tract. Depending on where the toxins are held in your body, they're going to use different techniques and bring those over a 10-day period, 7 to 10 days, like I go to India now and I go for 6 weeks. So it's a much more intensive process. But for that, even that 10 days alone, um, then they use a different herbalized oil kind of as an enema. They call it a basti so that they can remove all of those toxins out of the system. And this clears those energy channels, removes those blockages, those toxins. And again, as I mentioned earlier, energy and motion or emotions, it was trapped in my system. And so when I got emotional, it came out as violence. And now I'm can still get emotional and it doesn't come out that way simply because I went through this cleanse. And they gave us, the basics of Ayurveda, which is a daily routine they call dinacharya. And this is kind of like tongue scraping, oil pulling, to remove toxins from ear, nose, and throat. Abhyanga, which is putting oil on the body every day to continue to remove toxins. Like I remember seeing that process on a day-to-day basis, and you can see like this kind of like black film come off your body in the shower like every day. until about 3 or 4 months went by and I wasn't seeing it anymore. So I'm like seeing my purpose again was to purify the temple, the body.
Yep.
And I found this precious knowledge, this ancient knowledge that did this for me. And I continue to see not only like inner aspects, but the desires that I had, they were being fulfilled on the outside with least amount of effort and most amount of efficiency. So now I'm getting the both of the inner and the outer world from these techniques that I've incorporated into my daily life. And over 2 years, I felt like, man, this was it. This is what I wanted to learn to teach to other people. This is what helped me regain my life. So
How'd you feel when your wife first told you that you were different? Were you like, wait, what?
it was just shock because I guess my awareness wasn't on like the violent aspect of things then. Like I was going through my transformation, but the awareness really wasn't like settled in. The consciousness wasn't growing. But then when she said it, it gave me a way to, analyze, look into, be aware of, put the intention on, dang, these are the things that really put me in the places that I were in the past. And now she's bringing it up and saying that she can see this change just in this little bit of time. Um, I want to dive deeper into this. I was just shocked that she said it.
Yeah. You mentioned something I wanted to talk about too, and that was that you overcame the shame of your past actions. You let go of being shameful. What was that
Yes.
process like, and how did you work through that? Because I think that's a big thing for a lot of people, right? Is they just never get past blaming themselves or shaming themselves for what they've already done to create a new future, right? So then they just kind of live in this cycle. How did you do that?
It was, I mean, that's the shame, these fears, shame, guilt, judgment, those are mental aspects, but the mind and the body are intimately connected. Um, and so as I started just purifying the body, that it just naturally occurred. I can't pinpoint like a specific way. It was everything that I was doing with the body. I really wasn't so deep into meditation until I would say maybe 2016, 2017. And then things took a trend, like a really big step when I enrolled in school. That's when I started transcendental meditation. That's what I teach now. But that's when I kind of started more focused on the mind because the mind is much more powerful than the body. Like the mind controls the body. But when you can't even stop yourself from injuring a police officer. I had to take a different approach myself because I didn't know what I know today. And simply by doing these purification processes, I was purifying the mind, and the mind just got over the fear of taking action. It got over the guilt of things that I've done in my past. And then, like, I'm helping people in their journey. So, like, it's not a shame that I've done these things because these are the things that help me to get to where I am and to help other people. And again, I can't pinpoint one
Yeah.
thing, but if I was to say anything, I put the attention on the body, which helped me regain control of my mind and all the negative aspects that we put out on a daily basis just through the thinking process. And my thoughts became brutal. Like things just kind of started happening from there. So
Yeah, I think that's a big piece though, right? Is when we see the things we're maybe not proud of, when we see the things that we would say were our struggles or the turmoil we face, and we take that and looked at it as an empowerment, right? Like I wouldn't be here if I hadn't gone through this, even though it wasn't fun, it was negative in connotation. It didn't make me feel good at the time. It helped shape me today. And I think that's such an important piece is when we accept there's good days and bad days, and all of that makes us who we are today.
I like the acceptance part.
Yeah, right. Because I think we spend so much time trying to deny that that past part of us existed.
Yes.
We
Yep.
can't move past it, right? Because we're trying to pretend it wasn't there, but we, in our conscience, in our mind, like you said, our mind's powerful. In our mind, we know we're still that person
Oh yeah. Yep.
because we haven't grown
It's
past.
it's so true. That's why I wanted like to like I guess there's even steps to getting over those things as well. Like I remember being at a point of it was still some like fear when I got the wellness spa. Like, am I ready? Have I been through enough transformation? Am I really, ready to help other people? And then as you open the doors, like this is a physical location, like I got bills, like stuff that I'm responsible for, right? And and you see people come in and you have a certain energy and they leave and they energies change, then they, leave reviews and talk to you about, their experiences. And every day that builds a different confidence. And you start to see that every day with the people. You see that with the income and revenue that's coming in. You see that with the staff that you're bringing in and how you're transforming them. And every day over the past 4 years, those fears have, gradually decreased as well. Those guilts and shames where, now I'm ready to like pull out the story. Where 2020, when I opened the spa, I might not, I was not ready to put the whole story out in its fullness. But it was, talking to people one-on-one at the spa and,
Mm.
they can, congratulate you on what you've been through and thank you for being here. And then you see that the story is just a part of, life. And you can use that story to maybe give someone else hope or convict someone else or whatever that may be. Those are the two things that I went through was the hope and conviction to help me to gain this willpower to do more. And so, the shame just kind of gradually went away as you start to see you're helping other people.
Yeah, what I love about that is what I heard there and what I really loved was you had patience with yourself, right? Like you weren't trying to create it all in 2020. You took the baby steps in 2020 and then you started getting successes, which built more success. Like I call that creating momentum, right? Like we're creating momentum and then it gets bigger and bigger. Because sometimes I think in today's world, we struggle so much with comparison. We're seeing all the social media stuff. So we want that much success tomorrow. And then when it doesn't
It doesn't have to
happen,
help.
right.
And I can't say that, that was how it was for me at the beginning because I wanted the success too, and I wanted it right away. And you have to live and learn, and that grew the patience. I can't even necessarily say that in 2020 I was just this most patient person. The meditation and all these things help, and I think the lifestyle that I live helps with a lot of the aspects that I've been through. But I wanted it then, I want it now, but the patience is a big piece. And as you start to see, like, it takes time to go from where we were. Like when we bought this business as an existing business. They were at about 80,000 a year over those times. We've, done 8 times the revenue in that time. We've added in 10 staff members. We have doubled the square footage, probably 20 new services. And that wasn't easy. Like
Right.
the stuff that I had to live through and go through while that was happening, it was very uncomfortable because you're growing. You're learning things that you've, necessarily haven't done before. That creates patience.
Yeah, I think the other thing though is just what you said there, right? Like it's not wrong to want all that success right away. You got to have patience, say, okay, I'm building, but then you also got to have the toughness and the grit to keep showing up and work every day when
Have to,
maybe it wasn't as successful as you wanted right now.
have to. If you don't have that, I don't suggest jumping into business right away.
Yeah, but what about even in life, Ketu? What even about life?
Right.
Like showing up every day to put in my work to make myself better than I was yesterday. Like if I quit on that, or if I take that day off, or I'm not even going to work on me anymore, you're killing that momentum you created.
I agree. I agree with that as well. And I would even say, as far as a business move, that's why I didn't go into the things that I'm approaching right now when I first started business, because what I felt then was, especially this was the pandemic, like I opened July 2020. I didn't feel like people were, whether this is right or wrong, I felt like people were more interested in relaxation than the transformation aspect, because the transformation, you're gonna have to put this work in every day. I know the work that I've done 3, 4, 5 hours a day every day for 7, 8, 9 years now. Where people would proudly pay me, gratefully pay me, $200 for a half a day of relaxation, then the same amount of money were something they have to go put in, 20 minutes twice a day for meditation or 30 minutes twice a day for yoga. If I would have brought that out, I felt like my business model would have failed.
Mhm.
First, let me get people to know, like me, and trust me by giving them what they want. And then I'll start to slide in what you need when you're ready.
Yeah. Super smart. Super smart knowledge and strategy. And I also think just great life advice, right? Like if we can combine things we enjoy with things we're willing to work for,
Yeah.
we can create drastically different outcomes for ourselves.
So true. Yeah. I mean, that's the lifestyle that took me some time to gain momentum in is now the lifestyle that makes me a living as well, makes other people a living, that helps other people throughout their journeys. And so it definitely, from getting out of prison and, just kind of starting with a yoga book at home to uh, where I am now, it took some grit, some willpower, some, to be determined to reach this goal, because again, the goal started for me with like, I can do greater things. And I haven't even reached probably a good percentage of my potential yet. As much as I've grown, the goal was to do the works of Christ or greater things. And so there's still much more to go in the story. But I am confident in the path. Like that's what gave me a lot of patience as well, is because at first I was seeking, and the seeking was like restless. I was a restless seeker. I'm going from this person to this guru to this technique to this to qigong to different traditions and trying to find what I needed to reach this potential. And then when I actually found the path, and now you're on the path and you can see the destination, now it's like, oh, okay, at least I can see it. I know I'm going to get there. Let me just put the work in daily. And that gave me a little bit of, patience on the road that I was going on. So,
Mm. Yeah, that's fantastic. I wanted to talk to you too about something I saw, maybe on your website or Facebook or something, was your mission statement. And that was helping lost souls find their path to peace and fulfillment.
yes.
Talk to me about it. What does that mean when you hear that back to you?
I mean, I was lost. As I said, like, I really didn't know what I needed to do to even just stop going to prison. We don't even have to talk about greater things. Just how do I regain control of my life so that I don't have to keep going through these same results? So again, I'm in a world where I am lost. I really don't know which direction to go. And I took faith. And the faith for me was like, okay, I will go wherever I'm being led from someone that I believe in. And it's 2,000 years later and people are still talking about him. So he had to do some impact. And I felt like I wanted to be that hope for other people, And so it was about me going through the transformation myself, start to see the results, because they say, you'll know my followers by their fruit. So you have to, the spiritual part is first finding inside, but that should be a reflection of how you live on the outside as well. And so just guiding people from that dark place to a place of light. I don't look at myself as a guru at all. I don't want to be a guru, but a guru is a dispeller of light and a dispeller of darkness. And they're showing people light. Things, I look at that more as laws of nature, because there's these different laws of nature that construct our universe and how we function. And once you have light on how these things work, then you can use those things to your advantage. It's almost like, you're speeding down the highway. You didn't know that the sign, that the law was 55 and you were going 75. The police guy don't care. He's going to give you the ticket anyway. That's the laws. They're not, here to judge you in any way, but if you break these certain laws of nature, here's going to be your results. And if you live by them, then life will be more efficient and you don't have to put forth so much effort at what you're trying to achieve. So
Yeah, dude, that's fantastic. And I'm really excited because my wife and I, and we try to work with our kids are a little older now, but we're big in meditation and creating the world we want, right? Because we're all energy, just like you said earlier, right? Like we're all energy, and I'm responsible for what energy I bring to you today. And I'm
sure.
responsible for what energy I show up with, and I can control it.
Yes.
Right? Like my energy doesn't have to be dependent upon somebody else validating me or somebody else making me feel a certain way. Like it starts right here with me.
Yes.
And I love that we're going back. I see so many people that I want to follow, like you, that I want to. I'm like, man, let me get out to Ketu and let me be around you for a little bit because you're controlling your energy. Right? To help other people, first you got to help yourself.
So true. It's a I'm grateful. Honestly, I'm just grateful to be able to share this knowledge. Again, it was a place where I was lost and didn't know any of this or any place to go. And now I've been able to use this to regain my energy body, my mind, uh, control of the environment. Like environment's a big piece. I'm not just talking about like the South side. Again, when I mention astrology, like how the planets affect you, like how the housing that you're in affects your energy, how it's so many different ways to approach this ancient wisdom. Um, I specifically work with 16 different ways of aligning myself with nature, nature's rhythms, all the things that I've learned from Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. And this is where Deepak and Oprah, by the way, they learned all of these things from as well. That's how I end up getting to Maharishi as a teacher, and how I did my university degree at his school. I just found out at the retreat that Deepak learned a lot of these things from him in Ayurveda. And then I saw this picture of like Oprah meditating in the dome at the school that I went to. And she had this thing on her own network about life in Fairfield, Iowa. It's like, who wants to go to Iowa? Who wants to go to Fairfield? Sorry. Um, but it was like the things that he brought. He came over here in the 50s. A lot of people know him from like the Beatles that kind of came to him and other people, but
Yeah.
the knowledge that he left behind about these laws of nature and how to use them for your advantage feels like a cheat code for me. Like from where I was living before. It's kind of like a cheat code and how reality is set up and how these laws function. And if you know them, then life, you can definitely use them and life will be better.
Yeah, yeah, paying attention to it, right? Because we are all nature, right? We can, as
Yes.
humans, we can put up houses and fence our yards and do all this stuff to separate ourselves, but realistically, like we are all the same, right? We're all
Yeah.
energy. We're all interacting at one place or another.
So true.
How I want to
Energy,
before
frequency, and vibration. Go
I
ahead.
love it. Before we wrap up, how's your relationship with your parents now with such a drastic change and the success you've created?
They're just grateful. Overall, grateful that I'm not like, first living in and out of incarceration. That's probably the biggest piece. It took a while. Like transformation is difficult for most of us. And then just to see like the path that I chose, my mom or dad didn't understand. Again, my dad supports everything. It doesn't really matter. I'm his son. I'm the only child. Like he just supports it, whatever. Um, Kind of case with him, like he went to India with me the first time that I went in 2020. He was going through some health issues. He really didn't believe, in like the knowledge part of what I'm doing, but he believed in me. And I'm telling him like this is something that can help you out.
Yeah.
So like a week later, after he found out the news, he came out to India, got his passport, got his visa, everything was there, and he was going through these Ayurvedic treatments. So it was great to see them, you know, move into this lifestyle as well. He meditates. I didn't get to teach him because he learned in India the same technique that I use. My mom and my grandmother, I just was able to teach last year. I became the TM teacher a year ago, a little bit over a year ago. So like they meditate now. My mom's come out to the spa. She's brought her friends, other family members that's come out. So while they didn't understand the path at the beginning, they see the results today. They support the results today. Um, they are starting to live some of those things. The eating is I think it's the biggest piece for everyone. Transforming, that
And
would be the big piece for me, like transforming a diet from what I was used to having, and then like just staying away from things that I know wasn't good for my system. It's more for me now eating for energy, eating for balance instead of just eating for taste. Um, that's the hardest thing that they're going through, I would say.
and I think congratulations too, right? You made them grandparents, if I'm not mistaken, watching some of your videos and stuff. You got the whole family going now.
Yes, man. I turned 41 this year. My son's 15 months, so I had my first kid when I was 40. I'm the only child, so they've been wanting a grandchild since probably 20 years ago. But yeah, I mean, I'm in a great place now. I couldn't even imagine having a kid at 20. I was going to prison at 20. So, the lifestyle that I get to like show him that I'm excited to like give to him and show him all of these different ways. We just went on a cruise. We just got back from a cruise, a family cruise, like 2 days ago, um, where she was just able to kind of be with her grandson. They wish they could be here more. That's probably the one thing. I live in Colorado. They both still live in Chicago. Um, I'm like FaceTiming every day, all the different things, but they're super
Ah,
excited.
dude, that's so awesome. And Kate, I'm so proud of you, man. I appreciate your courage and your vulnerability to just put your story out there and be open and say, this is who I am. And that's how we inspire that next generation. That's how we inspire those people around us, to like I always say, maybe I won't change the world, right? Like that's my goal. Like I want to make the world a much better place for me and for my kids and your kids and everybody around. Maybe I don't do it. But maybe it's one conversation I have with somebody like you that does it for somebody, right?
Thank you.
And and when we get out there and we do it, we see the value in our own story, our potential is unlimited.
It really is. That brings me so much joy to know that it's an unlimited potential, that it was still untapped for me, and that I have these tools now to reach the highest potential of human consciousness, of human being. So um I'm excited to see what's next. Like every day is a thrill for me. Get to wake up and I have a full staff, so I'm most of the time right now spending with my son, if I'm honest.
That's good.
When I have clients, then I work with clients on a one-on-one basis, things like that. But the staff runs it, I mean, the spa runs itself. And so I've just been hanging out with the son, watching him grow.
Nothing wrong with that. K2, where can our audience follow you and be part of your journey and join your community?
Yeah, our space is called Luna Float Spa and Salt Cave. Lunafloatspa.com. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, all the social channels. We had throwing a retreat, like a retreat that kind of aligns with this is the first time that we're doing a retreat process. Just got it all created. It's up on our website. You can find it there. Path to Purposeful Living. And, the retreat aspect is what was a spark for me 8 years ago with Deepak. It was some place where I was able to like immerse myself in and really find these, aspects of what I needed to make these transformation. And then the day-to-day process that comes after that. But yeah, the retreat aspect I feel is kind of like our most precious thing that we're, cultivating right now to give people that more immersive experience so that they can dive into all of these different technologies. I call them technologies of consciousness,
Right.
and then integrate them into their lives as they're going home, as well. And so, yeah, Luna Float Spa.
Awesome. K2, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure to share your story, my friend.
Thank you, Jerrod. It was a pleasure. Thanks for having me on today.